skepticism from any of these people or anything along the way? Like,
oh, absolutely. And I like to say, as a good scientist is always skeptical. And so somebody meeting me with skepticism, I'd like to think I received that well. There's a reason that folks might be skeptical of a solution like this. One, in wound care, I'm sure over the years you've been practicing, you've seen many different advertisements for a wide variety of wound treatment products. And they probably all have some different degree of efficacy. In your hands, you may judge them as very efficacious all the way down to non-efficacious, hopefully never harmful, but non-efficacious at least relative to what you would think a control would perform. And so when you start into a new wound care product, just a little bit of question around, okay, does this really work? And then secondly, I have to admit that when you say something like, well, we're generating something your body already generated, it's nitric oxide, and you go, well, okay, so how's that going to help? Wouldn't somebody else have done this? And so I love an opportunity like this to talk to somebody who's curious like you and say, one of the great parts about this is we didn't invent nitric oxide. We didn't invent the idea of treating a wound with nitric oxide. I can point you to literally hundreds of examples in the literature where nitric oxide as a topical treatment works on wounds. And then once you've got that level of belief, okay, so you're telling me that you didn't invent nitric oxide. You didn't invent the idea of treating. Okay, so what is it about this? Okay, well, let me explain that part to you, why this is different than what might be out there. And at least as we see it, I think this is correct and fair, is that nitric oxide being a gas, delivering from a gas cylinder is an efficacious way of treating wounds. It is not a convenient way of treating wounds for most folks. And so, because you have to immobilize the patient, you have to have the gas cylinder, you have to have them together, you have to treat for some period of time. How long can you treat that for? Is it sustainable over a long period of time? You have to do intermittent treatments. So you can kind of run through why that might not have taken off. And then even relaying something like the story about Viagra, right? Viagra is not targeted to these particular wounds. There are other drugs that release nitric oxide that are designed to target wounds. But the Viagra is a good grounding to say, oh, okay, so now I understand. You can give a drug, it can break down your body, it can be not harmful in the generation of nitric oxide. Okay, so now once you put those two things together, people like yourself, when we met at VMX, go, okay, now I hear what you're saying. You're not trying to sell me on something that you guys found this and nobody's ever heard of it. Or, you're trying to sell me this thing that cost $1 million per treatment. Yeah, sure, it would work, but every time I get a cut, I'm supposed to put $1 million on my cut. No, that's kind of the beauty of what we attempted to do. We took the consumer products good background and said, how do we take this and not only deliver it in a convenient form, but do it in an affordable price point?
Well, let's talk about that. Why don't we go through the process? So you've got a wound and you want to treat it. So, from a veterinarian standpoint, what is the approximate cost, right? Right, because everything is, how much is this going to cost me? How much is this going to cost the client? And then what sort of time frame are you? So why don't we go through this whole process of how this system works? So in essence, you developed a better delivery system, is what you did.
That's how we see it. We believe that the delivery system is superior both on convenience and on cost. So I will start with cost. Hopefully I don't step on the excitement of what this is. Noxsano does sell through distributors, so we're available through the 4 largest distributors in the United States. MWI, Midwest, Covetrus, and Patterson all carry our product. And the price a veterinarian would pay for the product is about $20 per treatment. And so we'll start there. product comes either as a gel or a pad, and I'll focus on the pad and we can transition to the gel in just a second. It's a little bit easier to walk through one at a time. Pad shows up in a pouch, and I apologize for the glare. There's instructions directly on the front of the pouch, but the pad is inside the pouch. And the instructions say you just open the pouch and you pour water or saline into the pouch. And this is my cooking show demonstration, so you'd assume you'd open up the pouch, rip this open, pour water in, and allow that to quiet for 1 minute. Now, if I can hold up this one, this is our unhydrated pad. There's no nitric oxide in there. The invention, as we mentioned, was just the ability to generate nitric oxide at the point of use sustainably. This pad, and it might be hard to see on the camera, if it resembles a diaper in any way, there's a good reason for that. We took the same absorbent material that's inside a diaper and the same outer core that would be in a diaper for the reason that it's very gentle on newly grown tissue. And so this is designed to be nice, soft, non-adherent to newly grown tissue, so you don't damage that. And the acquisition material inside, called AGM, or absorbent gelling material as it's commonly known, is designed to, in the case of a diaper, just draw water away from the body of the baby to keep that baby's skin nice and dry. In this case, what we do is draw it in, and that binds the water in there. Water activates the dressing. And so when it's shipped to the veterinarian, there is no nitric oxide in this inactive reservoir. The wetting is what activates that and generates nitric oxide. That goes directly onto the wound and then is overwrapped. We developed this for, like I said, for diabetics, diabetic foot ulcers. So we designed it without any adherent properties. So it does have to be overwrapped in some way to stay in place. And we recommend anything that can be used to occlude the dressing. That's everything from Tegaderm to Saran wrap to even Coban or Telfa pads. That kind of thing works as a great secondary dressing for us. And that will stay active for up to 1 week as long as it stays wet. From a practical perspective, as we've interacted with more veterinarians, most veterinarians prefer to change the dressing about 2 to 3 times a week instead of a single change. And that's for a couple of practical reasons. One is that as the animals move around, you'll know this well, they have a habit of removing their bandaging material no matter what that bandaging material is. And so it's good to make sure everything's secured in place on some regular basis. And simply as they move around, sometimes the occlusive layer can slide a bit and it dries out. No harm to it drying out, it just shuts down nitric oxide production. And so if a dressing were to dry out, then in that case, you would simply replace it with a new dressing. So they can last for up to a week, but on twice-a-week change schedules, we see wound healing times reduced by up to 50%. Very excited, and unfortunately, I don't have something to direct you or to your viewers to just yet. At the end of January, so about 6 weeks ago, we just completed our first clinical trial at the University of Georgia. Dr. Mandy Wallace ran the test for us, and they're aggregating the data, and hopefully that will be sent to a journal to be published sometime in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Wow.
So we'll have some wonderful data out there for everybody to go and look and say, oh, an independently run study arrived at this conclusion as well. So you can imagine that on complex geometries or high motion areas or maybe non-compliant patients, it might be difficult to keep this in place. And so that was one of the feedbacks we got from vets who early on tested it. That was our single product at the beginning. And so what we did is we developed a second product that does the exact same thing. We have a dry powder that has no nitric oxide in it, comes in a syringe. In this one, you would simply uncap the syringe and draw water or saline up to the 5 milliliter mark, recap that, shake. I apologize for the cooking show here. I knew my camera wouldn't give me enough room to really show this whole thing. And the gel would be reconstituted in the syringe. So this gel was designed to be able to be dispensed and hold on to complex geometries. And so as I dispense this, you can see that unlike the pad, which is designed not to hold on to anything, the gel coming directly out of the syringe is able to hold on to my hand even turned upside down immediately after dispensing. And so this also generates nitric oxide at the same rate as the pad. So it's two different product forms doing the exact same thing. It's just designed for slightly different use cases. And it would depend on the veterinarian's need, the area of application. The nice part about the gel is it's less size constrained, so you could go across a very irregularly shaped wound. You can go into a deep wound. You can go onto wounds that may be small, and then recap the syringe. It'll stay active in the syringe for up to about 2 weeks, as long as it's not exposed to the environment, beyond just the dispensing. And so if you have a small wound, it can be used repeatedly with a single treatment.
Okay, so locations, where do you not recommend placing this product?
We recommend not placing it in the eye, and the reason for that is the precursor to nitric oxide that we use is sodium nitrite. Sodium nitrite is more commonly known as meat tenderizer. So when I referred to the Kroger trip earlier, that was what we were picking up at Kroger, was meat tenderizer. And so the wetting is what breaks down the sodium nitrite to nitric oxide. And simply put, sodium nitrite is a salt. And so applying a high salt content material into the eye is not something we recommend. For the time being, we recommend that maybe not putting into the inner ear, although we have a study going on in Florida right now with Dr. Paul Canfield that is looking at treating otitis externa. So I'm hoping that once we have that data, we'll know about the efficacy and safety of putting the material into the ear. Beyond that, we don't have an area that we would say you need to avoid using the product. It's generating a naturally occurring material. Everything in the pad and the gel were designed, like I said, not intended to be consumed, but designed with the knowledge that consumption would occur.
Interesting. So mucous membranes and everything, like things I'm thinking, what about like abscesses? You can put it in the abscess site itself?
Yeah, and we have some, I always pause when I start to say this. We have some wonderful pictures of this, and I think, well, maybe it's not wonderful that they occurred. It's wonderful that we healed them up. So yeah, you can put them directly in abscesses. We've had everything from puncture wounds, where it went directly into things that have been, say tumors that have been removed and they're closing by secondary intent, or dehiscence wounds, abscesses, and it's great. It forms granulation tissue that helps close those wounds.
And is this in lieu of oral antibiotics, or do most vets still do in combination with?
Well, I would say at the moment, most vets still do in combination. One of the things that we would love to see is if the infection is truly localized, we would like to see this help reduce the burden of the use of topical or oral antibiotics. Systemic antibiotics, as you, I'm sure, are aware, are beginning to become under some pressure in the veterinary field because we want to avoid creating resistant organisms that can jump from animals to humans. And so if you have a localized infection, one of the many roles of nitric oxide is an antimicrobial. And so we do have some great data showing veterinarians who had what, in some cases we biopsied, in some cases the veterinarians chose not to biopsy, so we don't always know what was in the wound, where the veterinarians treated with our materials and were able to clear the localized infections.
Wow. And the tube version is the same cost, or what's your cost of your tube version? The gel?
Yes. So we tried to price this very conveniently for veterinarians. The difference is the gel tubes are sold in packs of 5, and the pads are sold in packs of 10, but they're about $20 a piece. If you go to the distributors, you'll find a pack of 10 is actually $1.99 for pads and $99 for gels. So right at that $20 a piece treatment.
That's
range.
awesome. That's awesome. Well, Jacob, time is up in this discussion. It was a wonderful story. I think the product is phenomenal. I think the price range is phenomenal. full disclosure, Jacob sent me some samples. I can't wait to use them right now. I want to make them up and use them. Yeah, but thanks so much, Jacob. It's a very interesting story. I wish you best of luck on this product. I think it's phenomenal. It's available at all the distributors. So if you're interested at all in watching this, just hit up it's Covetrus, right?
Covetrus, Patterson, Midwest, and MWI.
Yeah.
All carry our
so
products.
There's not a vet I know out there who doesn't have a big account with any of those companies. So hit them up. But Jacob, if someone wants to reach you directly, what sort of contact? Can you give an email or anything that they'd be able to?
Absolutely. So if you're watching this, you can see my first name, Jacob. It's just jacob@noxsano.com.
Awesome.
If you happen to forget that, reach out to info@noxsano.com.
Awesome. You guys are really transforming wound healing. I really appreciate it. So thanks so much for being on the show, Jacob. It's been great.
Terrific. Thank you so much. This has been delightful, Dr. Tokiwa.
Thank you. And remember, everyone, love your pet like they love you unconditionally. Have a great day.